So this becomes kind of the foundation for the work that we're going to do throughout this series. So we're going to start with a simple definition. Dissolving the screen is a term coined by Jen Rugani from Teach Like a Champion, a great blog about teaching, primarily geared towards secondary ed, but definitely very useful for college teaching as well. Essentially, when you dissolve the screen, you're working to heighten and deepen instructor presence with a range of techniques. There are two fundamental components to dissolving the screen that are best summed up with two quotations. You're in effect saying to your students, I'm still here, we're still connected. And I see the work you're sending me, and it matters. Key principles of dissolving the screen. You want it to be consistent, and you want it to be ongoing. So this is not a one-off you do at the beginning of the semester and never return to it. Again, it's a through line throughout your class that students become accustomed to. It's varied. And so here's a great point for me to give a public service announcement to our less tech comfortable folks. This does not need to be high production value. It doesn't need to be beautifully edited. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be 17 takes. Be yourself and do what you would do in a face-to-face class. So for example, I often have to revise what I'm saying on the fly in a face-to-face class because I messed something up or didn't say it as clearly as I would have liked. Let yourself do that and leave that there. Let that be what it is. Students, in my experience, care far less about a laser light show than they do about feeling like they know who their instructors are and that their instructors are passionate about their subject matter and they're enthusiastic about conveying it. So be engaging, be excited, work to get yourself revved up before you record those videos or go on camera so that your students have a sense that you really do care about your subject matter. We understand and acknowledge that consistently connecting is harder, but we've also found over and over and over again from our own students, from other faculty students, that it's critically important and one of the best indicators of success in online teaching and learning. Hello and welcome to English 281 Creative Writing in the already very interesting fall 2020 semester in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm coming to you live from my home office, my study in New Haven. And I just want to introduce myself via video to let you know, first of all, I'm not a bot or a cartridge from the Pearson company or some outsourced person in another country delivering this course to you. I'm a living, breathing human person, as opposed to a non-human person, I guess, who is a full-time faculty member at Housatonic, and in a more normal semester, you'd see me on campus. I just also want to talk to you today a little bit about, whenever today is for you, a little bit about where the structure and practices of this course come from and what you can expect.
What we're doing is we're building connections and trust from the outset, as you saw modeled from the two clips of the videos you just watched. Our introductions, as the educator, should be quite informal, as you saw in Steve's video. And student introductions should be free in terms of the options that are allowed, both in format and content. They should be informal and personal. It kind of helps to break the ice without having to necessarily do an icebreaker, although that is a perfectly legitimate way to open a course as well. The more informal and personal the introductions can be, the more welcoming your class seems to students. Steve and I both suggest that there be guidelines for sharing comfort for students. Some students are going to be very free about offering up their whole entire life story and to share every single photo that's on their camera roll. However, other students are going to be introverted. They're not going to feel as comfortable sharing, and that should be okay too. And so letting students know that they are okay sharing whatever they feel comfortable sharing. Also, having open an Ask the Professor discussion board in your course can go a long way to helping students feel connected to you throughout the class. This is an area where they're free to ask you questions, not only maybe about content, but also about how the class works. Maybe they have questions about transfer. These are all areas where they could ask those questions, and they know that within a certain amount of time, you set the parameters, you'll get back to them. One of the things that I like to have in my courses is an FAQ, a frequently asked questions. This is something that's kind of a living document if I end up getting a lot of questions along the same lines, specifically about how the course is going to run. I end up putting that question in this frequently asked questions list, and then it lives there from semester to semester. So this is just a snip from my FAQ from one of my courses. It ends up being a lot longer than this, but you can see that I have a question and then I have the answers to that question down below, and make sure that the hyperlinks are all live and pointing to the right thing every single semester. And then I know that if a student has a question, or if multiple students have a question that is on this list, I can just point them right to the FAQ and say, please go here. Your question is a good one, and I already have an answer for it. Finally, having something to do with the syllabus that gives students an incentive to read through it and be responsible for that information. And depending on your content area, something along the lines of what plagiarism is all about can do a lot to reduce the amount of plagiarism and or cheating in your course. So one thing that I do is I have a pre-quiz that students take before they're allowed to move forward in the course. They have to read through the syllabus in its entirety, and then they go through and they're actually taking a quiz not only on some of the syllabus content, so it's not on everything, but it's on some select pieces that I want to make sure that they know and are clear about, specifically policies. And then also I have them do a pre-read on what plagiarism is and what plagiarism is not. And then I ask them questions about it. And both of these things are in the same pre-quiz. I've been giving this pre-quiz for 20 years. They take this pre-quiz and they have to get 100% before they can go on and take the first assessment, do the first homework, whatever it is. It leads to a little bit of accountability. Plus, later on, if there is an instance of cheating or there is some sort of misunderstanding about syllabus policy, I can go back and say, well, you know, you actually did get 100% on this. That tells me that you read the syllabus and that you understood at that time what plagiarism was all about. So it gives me a little bit more of a communication tool with students to actually nip a lot of that stuff in the bud right at the beginning of this semester.
So where are students learning from? One of the key things we want to find out early on is how our students are accessing the internet and how fast and reliable that internet access is. So do they have internet in their home? Are they piggybacking on internet from another apartment in their building? Are they working from public Wi-Fi hotspots and they may be in a parking lot? Are they reliant on the college's computer labs for access? So that may help us to target what we're doing in our classes. Similarly, what equipment are students using to access the course? Are they working from a laptop that's shared? Are they working from a home computer that's their own? Are they trying to do all of the coursework on a tablet or phone, which we know isn't recommended for Blackboard. So we want to target those students at the beginning so we can hook them up with the resources they need to be successful. Both of these elements of where our students are learning from are generally best shared privately through a Blackboard survey or a Microsoft or Google Form survey that comes only to you, and then you can respond directly to the student. So there's no self-consciousness about what they have or don't have that others may or may not have. Where are students working from in terms of what their workspace looks like? Is it a shared workspace? Are they alone? Are there individuals, small or large, in that space when they're trying to work? This is important for us to know both in the LRON environment, where we might be requesting students to turn video on and they may have some very compelling reasons why they'd prefer not to do that, including not wanting to disturb other students, and in the online environment, where we may ask students to record presentations and we want to give them some tips about doing that in a way that feels comfortable to them. So I often will have students share their answers to this work area question informally with other students as part of an introduction assignment, but I allow them to control how much of that work area they show. We use Flipgrid, which is integrated with our Microsoft suite through the college. And Flipgrid allows you to very easily control, blur the background, only focus in on a certain area. Some students will give you a tour of their bedroom. Others will keep you right at their desk with the background dark. So allowing them to determine, picking up on TJ's point from earlier, how much they want to show you, but that will give you an indication of where they're learning from. TJ and I both particularly like this graphic because it reminds us that our students' work areas may be less than ideal. Flexibility on our part is key, because we may find that where our students are learning from at the beginning of the semester is not where they're learning from later. Maybe jobs have switched. Maybe there's housing insecurity. Maybe they've moved in with a friend or they're couch surfing. So leaving a line of communication open with our students so that we can understand where they're learning from and help them to adapt from there and adapt where we can as well. So we talked about consistency and regularity in dissolving the screen. I'm going to give you kind of a rogues gallery from my own classes so you can get a sense of how that might work. So first, pretty low tech, key rewinds from a prior unit. I've read a bunch of drafts and I'm saying to students, here are some things based on those drafts you might want to take a second look at. Again, relatively low tech, just a slide with me overlaid. I've recorded this in Loom. What are some specific recommendations I would make for your revision after I've read your drafts? But I also want to be careful to highlight what they're doing well. Particularly in an online environment, students need to be reminded, hey, this is working. So here's just me doing a quick 1-minute video in Flipgrid, which allows you to throw up a goofy sticker like that, good job, and saying, I really like these proposals, and giving some concrete examples of what I liked. So for the students who aren't as strong, they're also hearing some concrete examples of what works. I've been known to throw on a hat or dress up a little bit to make a point, and here's an example of me doing that. Students are writing a persuasive piece, and I'm reminding them that they need lots of evidence to back up their points. I'm not looking for rants. Taking students on a field trip virtually. I was doing this for a creative writing class. They were taking a character on a field trip to Graceland, of all places, and you'll notice in that lower left-hand corner, I dressed up like their high school and grade school teachers might have done. I've got a baseball cap on and a Housatonic t-shirt. I generally try to dress relatively professionally for my videos, and I made a big point of doing that to give them kind of, just a fun flavor of being on a field trip, right? And again, be a human person here that they're watching and listening to. Around the holidays, I saw my students' energy flagging, and I knew they were really struggling. We were at the height of the pandemic, and they were not able to celebrate Thanksgiving with their families in the ways they would have liked. And so I told them, I'm really sad about not getting to decorate my office at school this year. Usually I just put out this little Charlie Brown tree, but I use this as an opportunity to go a little crazy, and I put out lots more things here. And I encourage them to think about how they might find ways to practice their traditions, even though they were different this year, right? And then they had great fun trying to pick out what other things were in the room that reflected holiday. Finally, at the end of the semester, as important toward the end as it was at the beginning to dissolve the screen, because again, our students' energy will be flagging. That's just the graph we follow every semester, whether we're teaching face-to-face or online or hybrid. So I'm reminding them where they can get help that I would be giving them more feedback. Here are all the ways you can reach out to me. Here's a way you can reach out to each other and exchange drafts. The Writing Center can help you, and they have these special hours. And you can still schedule an appointment with me through bookings. And if none of those times work, reach out. Let's find a mutually convenient time. And again, not super high tech, just a very simple slide. So now that you've learned some key principles of dissolving the screen and seen some concrete examples, we want to give you a pause point here. And we'll talk more about pause points in a future episode. What are some simple ways you can use to dissolve the screen more in your online courses? So if you're already doing it, are there some new places you could investigate where you might do more of that? Or maybe you're doing it and you didn't even realize that was dissolving the screen, so you're just going to make sure to be focused on that. If you've not done it at all, what are some simple things you can do to get started? If you are teaching Elron or hybrid this semester, what can you do to dissolve the screen to maintain an instructor presence in between course meetings?